Federal High Court in Lagos has ordered the unconditional release of Capital Oil Limited Chairman Dr. Ifeanyi Ubah from custody. Oil prices retreated on Thursday after the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries (OPEC) reportedly reached a deal. North Korea called South Korea's recent firing of warning shots at Abada a reckless military provocation. Manchester United claimed their second major trophy of the season and secured Champions League football. Good and welcome to African Broadcasting Network News. I'm Chinyere Nwabo. Now the news in details. Former President Olusegun Obasanjo said the extremism of the Boko Haram in the northeast and the Niger Delta militants in the south-south were not addressed on time by the governments before they became monsters. Obasanjo said this at a workshop in Abuja on the prevention of violent extremism, noted that the Niger Delta agitation grew from socio-economic deprivations. According to him, violent extremism was one of the hindrances to reaping the dividends of democracy. At the workshop, which was organized by the Club de Madrid European Union delegation, Stop Violent Extremism Madrid +10, Partnership Against Violent Extremism, and the Counter-Terrorism Center, the National Security Advisor Babagana Mungano said all stakeholders must explore ways of preventing sermons in mosques from radicalizing youths. Mungano also said the federal government would in August launch a national framework on prevention of violent extremism, adding that the success of the war against violent extremism would depend on finding lasting solutions to the challenges of governance, democratic institutions, and a lack of opportunities. The Federal High Court in Lagos has ordered the unconditional release of Capital Oil Limited Chairman Dr. Ifeanyi Ubah from the Department of State Services DSS custody. Justice Muhammad Idris said Ubah's detention without charge was illegal. He directed the DSS to file a criminal charge against Ubah within 48 hours if it has a case against him, or release him with no conditions attached. Ubah has been in detention for weeks over allegations that he diverted petroleum products stored in his tank farm by the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation (NNPC). Justice Idris said security agencies must understand that they are not instruments of debt recovery, adding that the DSS lied on oath in a bid to justify Ubah's detention, describing it as unfortunate. Nigeria's ailing power sector at the Senate yesterday, as senators submitted that the sector is in a comatose position and in a dire need of emergency response. The lawmakers said that because the distribution companies are bankrupt and cannot procure meters, the entire privatization of the power sector should be revisited. The submissions were made at a debate on a motion sponsored by Dino Melaye on how frustration in the power sector is further sabotaging efforts at reviving the economy. Melaye had in his motion said that years after the privatization of the power sector, the distribution companies, DISCOs, handling the retailing and marketing of electricity in the industry, have not been able to effectively meter their customers, thereby leaving millions of them at their mercy through estimate billings. Chairman Senate Committee on Privatization Ben Meribu said there was no solution to electricity crisis in Nigeria for now. He therefore recommended that the Senate should prevail on the federal government to revisit the privatization. Also, Mustafa Bokar noted that Nigeria is sitting on emergency in the power sector because all the measures that had been adopted were not working. In another development, the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, UNIDO, has urged the federal government to develop a novelty mechanism of providing regular and affordable energy for economic and industrial development of the country. UNIDO representatives to ECOWAS and Regional Director, Nigeria Regional Office hub, Jean Bakole, stated this during his visit to the ministry. Minister of Power, Works and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, to acquaint him with the organization's program in Nigeria. And on business, the US dollar recouped from its early lows against its major rivals in the early European session on Thursday. The greenback bounced off to 1.1218 against the euro, 1.2950 against the pounds, 111.90 against the yen, and 0.7465 against the Aussie, from its early two-day lows of 1.1250, 1.3014, 111.147, and 0.7516 respectively. The greenback rose back to 0.7023 against the Kiwi, 0.9726 against the franc, and 1.3444 against the loonie, off its early low of 1.705, three-day low of 0.9700, and five-week low of 1.3388 respectively. The next possible resistance for the greenback is seen around 1.10 against the euro, 1.27 against the pound, 113.00 against the yen, 0.99 against the franc, 0.69 against the Kiwi, 1.35 against the loonie, and 0.73 against the Aussie. Meanwhile, Chinese yuan rose to near a two-year high on Thursday, with USD CNY at 6.8690 on reports. State-owned banks sold dollars on the onshore market. The People's Bank of China said the yuan midpoint at 6.8695 against the dollar on Thursday, compared to the previous close of 6.8895, a day after Moody's downgraded the sovereign rating. The China foreign exchange trade system sets the weighted average of prices given by market makers. The central bank allows the dollar-yuan rate to move no more than 2% above or below the central parity rate. Market watchers see a yuan level of 7 against the dollar, USD CNY as a key touchstone for sentiment in the near term. Oil prices were treated on Thursday after the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, reportedly reached a deal with Russia and other major producers to extend output cuts by 9 months. Brent crude was trading down 66 cents at $53.30. U.S. West Texas Intermediate was 68% down at $51.23. The cartel and non-member exporters are meeting in Vienna to discuss whether to extend the deal reached in December to jointly slash oil output by 1.8 million barrels per day in the first half of the year. The extension is likely to be 9 months instead of the originally planned 6 months, while the biggest non-OPEC producer asks for 12 months. Saudi Arabia and Russia have agreed the extension of the cost is needed to help the market continue rebalancing and prevent prices from falling below $50 per barrel again. However, not everyone in Russia is backing the extended accord. The Russian Finance Ministry has issued a warning that cutting production could provoke the second wave of shale oil revolution in the United States. The deal will temporarily reduce what is an offer to the market, but the difference will be compensated by U.S. shale oil, which will only lead to oversupply in the future. According to the ministry, oil prices slightly above $40 per barrel, but without U.S. shale, would help the market to rebalance faster. Let's join Faith for stories around other African countries.
Thanks, Chichi. President Jacob Zuma faces a key battle for his political survival this weekend when senior members of his ruling party say they'll push for its decision-making National Executive Committee to order him to step down. Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa echoed that the South African Council of the Churches on Sunday by saying the nation is at risk of becoming a mafia state, while ANC spokesperson Zeze Kodwa denied that the option of Zuma's ouster will feature at the three-day executive committee meeting that starts on Friday. 4 members of the panel said they would force it onto the agenda. They asked not to be named because they aren't authorized to speak on the matter. Even though Zuma withstood a bid to remove him at NEC meeting in November, criticism of him is rising as he prepares to relinquish the ANC leadership in December. While only Parliament can legally force the president from office, the NEC could instruct Zuma to resign, as it did Thabo Mbeki in 2008, or tell its MPs, who occupy 62% of the seats in the national legislature, to remove him. Zuma said he will quit if the party orders him to. The rand gained the most among major currencies on Tuesday and Wednesday after Bloomberg reported the ANC leadership may discuss Zuma's ouster. Yields on benchmark government bonds due 2026 dropped 6 basis points to 8.49% on Wednesday in Johannesburg. Some ANC leaders have openly expressed concern that if the party doesn't change its ways, it may lose power in the next general election in 2019. In recent weeks, Zuma's government have suffered a series of stinging rebukes. Within the party, challenges to Zuma authority are likely to continue should he manage to clinch office, according to Mtika. African extremist group Al-Shabaab said it carried out 3 attacks in Somalia and Kenya on Wednesday that killed 16 people, most of them police and security officers. Somalia's government recently launched an offensive against Al-Shabaab extremists, and Kenya officials says the militants are feeling the pressure. Officials in Mogadishu said at least 8 people were killed and 15 others wounded by a car bomb explosion late Wednesday near the Somali capital's seaport. In claiming responsibility for the blast, Al-Shabaab said it was targeting police and intelligence officials at the time. In Kenya, meanwhile, witnesses and local authorities said 8 security officers were killed in 2 separate roadside explosions in the country's northeast near the border with Somalia. 5 men were killed by an improvised explosive device that hit a convoy of vehicles escorting the governor of Mandera County, Ali Roba. Another roadside bomb killed 3 police officers traveling between Liboi and Kulan towns in Kenya's Garissa County. That blast wounded 5 people and 2 seriously. Kenya's police chief, Joseph Burnett, sounded a warning on Tuesday about stepped-up Al-Shabaab attacks in his country as a result of military campaign in Somalia, where African Union troops are supporting Somali forces. This was the first suicide bombing claimed by IS in Somalia, a country where it has operated since 2015. According to police, the attack targeted officers manning a security checkpoint in a busy junction of Basaso in Somalia's semi-autonomous Portland region. We'll go on a short break. More news when we return. Welcome back. North Korea has called South Korea's recent firing of warning shot at the border a reckless military provocation aimed at promoting anti-Pyongyang sentiments and maintaining a confrontation on the peninsula. South Korea fired warning shots Tuesday after detecting an object flying across the border from North Korea. Seoul later said the object was probably a balloon carrying Pyongyang's propaganda leaflets. The North General Staff on Thursday accused Seoul of fabricating the incident, saying South Korean soldiers fired 450 rounds of shots at the flock of birds. It warned in a statement carried by the official Korean Central News Agency that North Korea would closely watch if South Korea's confrontation is terror would develop. The Koreas face off across the world's most heavily armed border, and their militaries occasionally clash. Democrats have criticized Donald Trump's proposal to set aside $200 billion over 10 years for infrastructure, an amount one congressman says is not the big spending that Mr. Trump promised during his campaign. According to the president's budget request, the fund would be used to encourage companies as well as states and local governments to invest at least $800 billion in U.S. infrastructure projects. While adding $200 billion for infrastructure spending, Mr. Trump's budget will cut the Department of Transportation's discretionary budget by nearly 13% to $16.2 billion. Calling it a broken promise of this budget, Democratic Congressman Brenda Boyle asserted that this proposal falls short of the $1 trillion Mr. Trump pledged during the campaign, one of his few promises that received support from Democrats. A section in the White House spending proposal says that the infrastructure plan would support $1 trillion in private/public infrastructure investment. It would take almost $4.6 trillion over the next 8 years to bring all infrastructure systems up to an acceptable standard, according to the American Society of Civil Engineers in March. Democratic Representative Brian Higgins pointed out that China has recently invested $1 trillion in infrastructure projects in other countries to enhance its position in global economic order. While testifying before the committee, Mr. Trump's budget director Mick Mulvaney repeatedly emphasized that private capital investment is more effective and more accountable than government investment. Troops backed by attack helicopter battled dozens of militants linked to the Islamic State group holed up in a besieged city in the southern Philippines on Thursday after attempts to secure volatile areas met heavy resistance. The army sent about 100 soldiers, including U.S.-trained special forces, to retake buildings and streets in mainly Muslim Marawi cities held by militants of the Mort group, which has pledged allegiance to Islamic State. Thousands fled as rebels seized large parts of the city and touched buildings in returning battles with government forces that erupted on Tuesday afternoon after a failed raid by security forces on one of the group's hideouts. Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte imposed martial law on impoverished Mindanao, the country's second largest island, to prevent the spread of extremists after the March rebels rampage through the city of 200,000 people. At least 21 people have been killed since then. Religious leaders have also accused the rebels of using Christians taken hostage during the fighting as human shields. Islamic State claimed responsibility late on Wednesday for most activities as conflict has eased overnight, but fled again later on Thursday morning when troops advanced towards a strategic bridge held by Mort fighters. The military sent into helicopters with machine guns to flush out rebels and take control of the bridge, one of 3 operations in the city. Trucks were being sent to evacuate any remaining civilians. A total of 7 government troops, 13 militants and 1 civilians had been killed since Tuesday. Marawi is located in Lanao del Sur province, a stronghold of the Mort, a first but little-known group that has been a tricky opponent for the military, with hundreds of civilians, including children, were sheltering in a military camp in Marawi City on Thursday. The Mort had taken more than a dozen Christian hostages and set free 107 prisoners from 2 jails since Tuesday. And that's it on World News Today. Let's join Hannah for some sport news.
Thanks, Faith. The Defender Club has issued a statement to confirm the absence of the player from the Super Eagles camp in Kosika. MERS has confirmed Leon Balogun withdrew from the Nigeria team to play Kosika and Togo on May 26th and June 1st, respectively. The centre-back leaped up the pitch in the 18th minute and was replaced by Alexander Ark as the Zero Fevers lost 2-0 to Con in their last Bundesliga game of the season. The 28-year-old defender was scheduled to join the Super Eagles in Kosika for the preparation ahead of the 2019 African Cup of Nations qualifiers against South Africa and might be a doubt for crucial features on June 10th. Manchester United claimed their second major trophy of the season and secure Champions League football as they overcome Ajax to win the Europa League final in Stockholm. On an emotional night following the attack which killed 22 people at Arena Grad concert at Manchester Arena on Monday, United fans were allowed a measure of celebration as Jose Mourinho's side won in comfort. Paul Pogba's deflected shots put them ahead in the 18th minute, and Henrik Mkhitaryan's sixth Europa League goal of the campaign flicked in from Chris Smalling's header at a corner confirmed they would add to the EFL Cup won against Southampton earlier this season. When Rooney made a brief appearance as a substitute with a minute left and a game won, being added captain armband by Antonio Valencia on what could well be his farewell appearance for United. And as the final whistle sounded and United celebration began, chants of around the French arena in tribute to those who died and were injured in attack, which cast a shadow over the showpiece occasion. The Chelsea striker potential move to the CSL has hit a snag following new rules introduced by the CFA. The Chinese Football Association has introduced its strongest policy to date to curb soaring transfer fee on foreign players amid speculation Diego Costa and Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang could move to China. A fee in excess of £60 million has been multed for Chelsea Costa, who continues to be linked with Chinese Super League side Tianjin Quanjian, while Borussia Dortmund star Aubameyang could command a similar figure after Shanghai Oscar arrived in China for a league record €60 million. The CFA wants to put an end to the inflated fees and focus on youth, with the transfer rules set to come into effect in June, forcing clubs to invest into a development fund should they take a transfer loss. With Oscar Og, Carlos Tevez, Ezekiel Lavezzi, Azel Witsel, Graziel Pele, Paulino Ramirez and Alex Teixeira calling China home following big money moves, the CFA released a statement saying a special fee would be imposed on any club who has a trade deficit in a single transfer market. CFA plans to introduce another rule to increase the playing time of China under 23 players. It comes after the CFA cut down the maximum number of foreign players in the CSL, capping the number of imports in any side, with teams now restricted to fielding 3 at any given time during a game and naming 5 in the matchday squad. And on tennis, world number 4 Simona Halep says she has only a 50-50 chance of being fit for next week's French Open. The 25-year-old Romanian tore an ankle ligament during the Italian Open final. British number 4 Tara Moore will not be in Paris after losing 6-2, 7-5 in qualifying to Taiwan Kaowen Chang. Elsewhere, Britain Kel Hedmond was beaten 3-6, 7-5, 6-4 by France number 32 Gilles Simon at the Lyon Open. That's it on sports.
Thanks, Hannah. And that's it on our bulletin today. But before we go, a look at the top stories that made the headlines. Federal High Court in Lagos has ordered the unconditional release of Capital Oil Limited chairman Dr. Ifeanyi Ubah from custody. Oil prices retreated on Thursday after the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries (OPEC) reportedly reached a deal. North Korea calls South Korea's recent firing of warning shots at the border a reckless military provocation. Manchester United claimed their second major trophy of the season and secured Champions League football. Thanks for joining us. You can follow us on our social media platform by visiting our website at www.abnchannel.net. Follow us on Twitter at ABN Channel, like us on Facebook at ABN TV. Also subscribe to our YouTube channel, African Broadcasting Network. Thanks.